Hey, check, check, check. Hey, hey, hey.
No, it's still complex. I want to understand food system in a very simple way so I can explain to my policymaker how it can lead to healthy diet. So let's go to another framework. This is another framework that was developed by the Global Panel. And they've made it very simple. You can see on the outside food system, but food system is broad, but they've put them together in boxes: agriculture, food storage, food transformation, food retail, and then in you get food environment, and then food, the consumer there. It kind of gives you a little bit of a direction on how you can get to the healthy diet that the consumer wants. Next slide, please. This is also another one, very similar to that one. This Charlotte was very much involved in the team when she was with FAO, very much involved in developing this. And again, you can see the food systems on the outside. You can see that so many pieces contribute to the food system. Then there's something called the food environment. The food environment is inside the food system. It's just a little aspect of it. Whatever happens on the outside influences the inside. Let's go to the next one. This is what I like, because it's so simple. So simple I can understand it. Food system, from production, retail, consumption, all the things that happens around. What happens there influences the food environment. The food environment is where you and I buy our food. You know, the environment around us. So if we fill our environment with junk food, most likely that is what we are going to buy. So the food environment is influenced by a lot of things: your preferences, your culture, your likes and dislikes. You know, a lot of government policies and things will influence the food around you, and that will influence your food environment. Okay, and then we come in. So what happens in the food system, what happens in the food environment will ultimately determine the quality of your diet. So this is the very simple path we are talking about. Food systems, huge, complex, food environment, what we'll pick around, and then ultimately what we choose will influence our nutritional status. So now we are saying that we want food systems to deliver on healthy diets. People have said that our current food systems are broken. They are broken in several ways. So this basically is not delivering in various forms. And a paper that was published in 2018 puts it nicely. One, inability to feed future world population. So we have a problem in addressing food security with our current food systems. We currently have over 820 million people who go to bed hungry, and yet the world produces a lot of food. We produce so much food, everybody should have enough, and yet there are people who go to bed hungry. The food system is not delivering on healthy diets. Again, there are people who are compromising on the quality of the food they eat because they cannot afford it or it's not accessible to them. So there's something wrong with the food system. And we are talking about 2 million people who have to compromise on their diet because the food system is not delivering on the healthy diet. The food system is also inequitable. It's not equal. I mean, there are a lot of players within the food systems. We have big companies who influence the food system, and then we have the small players. The small players, small scaleholders, family farmers, the people who produce the nutritious foods. The fruits and vegetables, which are very perishable. So, you know, some of the big men don't want to go into that because it's too risky to produce fruits and vegetables and some of the perishable foods. And the small-scale farmers produce it. and interestingly, these small-scale farmers, if you look in many countries, if you're looking at the people who are most vulnerable to poverty and vulnerable to malnutrition, is the small-scale farmers. Again, there's something wrong with the food system. People who produce food and yet are malnourished and yet are poor. So the food system is not equitable. It's not serving everybody equally. Then the food system is not sustainable. Okay, great, thank you. The food system is not sustainable. It's not sustainable in various ways. We are losing agrobiodiversity. The food system is not sustainable because we are producing a lot of greenhouse gases, out of the system where we are producing our food. We are using a lot of our land. At the moment, about 50% of our land is going to this. So all of these things are contributing. So it's not environmentally sustainable. It's not also sustainable for our health. Oh gosh. I'm sorry. Okay. Some have said that because of the problem we have in our food system, and I want you to know that if we do not transform it and we keep to the current food system as we have it, this is likely to be the first in human history when the next generation will have a shorter lifespan than their parents. Because our food systems are not delivering on healthy diets, the way we eat now has become a major contributor of health and disease for us. Basically, some have put it in a way, graphic way, saying that our food systems are actually killing us because of the way we are eating. I have to go back one more. Basically, that's if you look at the analysis that has been done by the global burden of disease, shows that dietary risk factors, that means factors regarding the way we eat, is actually contributing to the burden of disease in terms of disease and death for adults. Okay. So we've talked about the problem. So then, we want to see how we can make the food system work for us. And it has to start from outside the production, what we produce, how we process it, how we transport it, how finally it lands on our plate and disposal. And also, we should try and influence the food environment so that we can get the quality diet we want to eat. This shows, if you are looking at production, a lot of countries put a lot of effort on cereal production, staple crop production, and yet we say we want to change our diet and make sure that we are eating enough fruits and vegetables. In many countries, in fact, if we eat the recommended amount of fruits, if we should eat the recommended amount of fruits and vegetables, the likelihood is that we may not have enough to go around because a lot of the effort and investment is on staple crop production. So a lot of governments around the world are doing a lot of things. I'm sure you will hear from the case studies we'll be reporting now. But just to look at what governments are doing, some are diversifying agricultural production. So it's not just staple crops, invest also in the fruits and vegetables, legumes and all. That's some of the actions governments are taking. Linking food systems, climate change, and diets. This is something we have to think about. We need to empower women and create a positive change within agriculture and food systems. I'm not going into details on this, but just to let you know some of the areas in which we can make changes. Empower consumers to make healthy diets, healthy food choices through how you can influence the food environment. Taxes and all can also be other interventions. We can why don't you somebody control it for me because it's just jumping all over. Okay, next. Okay, so advertising to reduce misleading claims. Next. Use of food-based dietary guidelines. Please, next. More data on food availability, affordability, because when the food is expensive, people will not buy it. Next. Okay, so please go back one more time. So this is just to give you an idea of some of the things that countries are doing to change maybe from production, their food environment, and ultimately consumption. Okay, these are just some of the things people are doing. Next slide, please. Another very important tool that people are using, countries are using, is food-based dietary guidelines. Food-based dietary guidelines is an instrument to say that it's a document, it's a government-owned document that says that this is how we want our citizens to eat. And many developed countries have food-based dietary guidelines, but many developing countries do not have. So if we want people to change their eating habits, then we should really have food-based dietary guidelines. And this can inform our food production, it can inform procurement, it can inform education that we give our citizens. So many countries are now coming on board with this. Please, next. I was in China last week, and China has developed the food-based dietary guidelines. They are concerned about the way the people are eating, because now obesity is also on the rise in China. So in their food-based dietary guidelines, you can see that they've put what they want people to eat. You can see where fruits and vegetables are, where they've put it, right? Where so they eat more. That means that they must produce more of these foods to ensure that people are eating a lot of these. Okay, please, next. And also, you can use food-based dietary to give specific messages on some foods you want people to reduce consumption of. Sugar, salt, fat, meat, whatever. You can use food-based dietary guidelines to do this. Next, please. And then some countries are using labeling. I mean, Chile is a well-known example. Looking at labeling provisions, I will not go into it. That can also help, because you don't have to read the labels. You see the black dots, and you know that stay away from this product. So they are using this. Next, please. And then these are some of the actions countries are taking. Sugar sweetened beverages, putting taxes on it, and several actions. This year, early this year, Lancet put out a paper on the global syndemic, looking at obesity. And one of the things they talked about, which is driving the problem, is the fact that governments are not taking action. They've got something they call policy inertia. Because of votes, because of powerful lobbying by private sector, governments cannot just take action. So there's a lot governments can do, but somehow they are not taking action. But anyway, let's go to the next slide. So if we want to make sure food system is working, then we must be talking about policy coherence. Food production should link up with trade. We should link up with health, education. All of these, the policies must match. If one is going one direction, another direction, it will not work. That's the beauty of food systems. You make sure that your policies all are coherent to deliver on the diets that you want. Next slide, please. So just to let you know the number of materials, we had an expert consultation talking about sustainable healthy diets. We set up talking about healthy diets, and we realized that we cannot leave out sustainability. We should be talking about sustainable healthy diets. We have copies of these pamphlets or publication in the Global Village. On this note, let's go on to the next slide. The number of documents that have been produced, FAO has on food systems, and I hope that if you go to the website or go to the Global Village and talk to somebody, they can give you some of the links where you can get some of these documents. On this note, I want to say thank you for your time and attention.
On the PowerPoint, please. Thank you very much, Anna, for this great overview. Wow, that's a lot to chew, isn't it? So we're going to take it in little bits, and we are now welcome to the International Marketplace on food system entry points for nutrition. It's such a big, complex system. How do we get in? And let's break it down to some concrete things we can do. And I'm very pleased that in this room we have a number of countries who have the experience of some of the interventions Anna Larty has just mentioned. So how is this going to work? Please listen carefully. And if you're in the back of the room, you're going to be part of this too. So, in the next 50 minutes or so, we're going to have 2 rounds. So each of you is going to get 2 case studies. If you are several members from your country team, You might choose to go to different places, right? There's 11 case studies to choose from, illustrating 5 topics: nutrition-sensitive agriculture and food systems, school nutrition, food-based dietary guidelines. If you want to know how it actually works, that's a really good opportunity. Food labeling and marketing regulations, and some topics around urban food policies, and even a case study on urban agriculture, right? There could be even more: natural resource management and biodiversity protection and so on. But this is some of the key topics that often come up. It is very sensitive. So we have a system to make sure you can have access to different case studies in 4 languages. I'll tell you how it works later. And in each round, you will have about 10 minutes maximum of presentation from your host. And then you can engage in questions, a discussion, as you wish. You can bring in your own country experience. This is a marketplace. It's quite informal. Don't worry about, there's not going to be a plenary feedback. This is your experience. What you're learning, what's happening. This is a very scary. Food systems can be rock and roll. Okay. Okay. I think I'm gonna stop using that. So here's our menu of degustation, like something appetizers. So on the left column is the topic. You have some hard copies of this menu on your tables, and some of them should be also around in the back. And you can see, if you're an English speaker, your choice. So in English, we'll have Namuko Lokovic from the CGIAR talking about the African experience on integrating nutrition in agricultural investment plans, including CADEP process, and Joyce Ngoro from IFA presenting their experience on nutrition-sensitive value chains. Kyrgyzstan will be presenting their experience on school nutrition, Zambia on food-based dietary guidelines, Sri Lanka on food marketing and their traffic light system, Peru in the second round only, because in the first round they're doing it in Spanish, Peru on food marketing, but also food-based dietary guidelines. They'll cover both. And on urban issues, we'll have the EAT Foundation sharing experiences on urban food environments for children, and Indonesia on influencing the food policy in the city of Surabaya. In French, there will be whisper translation, so if you understand some English, but you prefer whisper translation as support, you can also go to the case study on Africa. Burundi will be presenting in French on school nutrition. There will be whisper translation on the Costa Rica, so please go in small groups there. Please, if you're French speakers, groups small. Same thing for Sri Lanka. Whisper translation, a little group huddled around the translator in the back. And then Madagascar will be in French on urban agriculture. In Espanol, you can have whisper translation in the case study by IFAD. Burundi, the Costa Rica will be in Spanish, Peru will be in Spanish in the first round, and Indonesia. Again, you have hard copies of this. And next slide. I will keep this slide up during the session. It's going to stay there. This is the map. So you can find your case study of interest. Okay? So as you see, the top is the stage, which means that IFAD, can you raise your hand? Joyce, IFAD is over there. And if you see a little circle attached to the round, it means that there's whisper translation there, if all goes well. There might be hiccups in this. It's been quite a puzzle to put together. Madagascar, can you raise your hand? Madagascar is right here. Yeah. Costa Rica, aquí, in this table. Indonesia, Burundi, Peru, Kyrgyzstan. Where's Kyrgyzstan? Okay, you can go at that table over there, right? He'll be over there. Sri Lanka, wonderful. Namukolo, Africa, CGIAR, beautiful. Zambia, food-based dietary guidelines. And EAT Foundation, Usman is all the way at the back over there. Hello. You might hurdle around, so you can start moving around. You might be, some of you sitting down, some of you standing up around the smaller circle. Feel free to go explore, and you'll have 20 minutes in the first round, and then I'll call a game and we'll go for a second round. If you have any questions, come to me, I'll be right here, but find your way and have fun, explore, create yourself a diverse shopping cart of ingredients. And for Russian speakers, Kyrgyzstan is in Russian, and our Russian colleagues may also accompany you in a case study of your choice if you're a small group of Russian speakers. Just for your information, the Peru case study on food-based dietary guidelines and labeling, food labeling, will be in English in both rounds. And it's a fascinating case study, so especially if you're in a big group and you want a super case study on food-based dietary guidelines and food labeling, you can find Nelly, Dr. Nelly here, next to Marlene, yeah. Okay. And we have a phone here. Just for your information, we will change in about 5 to 6 minutes. So ask your questions and start wrapping up, and we'll then go for the next round. Right? Nous passerons à la phase suivante dans à peu près 5 ou 6 minutes. Okay, we can bring things to a close, and I invite you to have like 1 minute, 2 minutes to close, and then we switch. In 2 minutes, it'll be abrupt interruption. Dans 2 minutes, j'interromps tout, et on passe à la deuxième ronde. Everybody, please go to round 2. Choose your next stall. What is the other ingredient of knowledge you are collecting? On passe à la deuxième tournée. Please bring your discussion to a close and switch.
So many legal process. So how they will do, I don't know. And the media play the vital role to influence every food product, like Cerelac and everything for the young children. So how they will manage media also is the very big challenge. But she will answer, they will do something. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Media, another stakeholder we need to involve. One lady here, and then Marty.
My name is Regina, and I'm from Papua New Guinea, Department of Agriculture and Livestock. This morning's discussion was very interesting, and from this table, our discussion was surrounding nutrition-sensitive agriculture. And I'd like to just my takeaway from this discussion today, and it's something that from Papua New Guinea, we just had our nutrition policy. It was a multi-sectoral policy between 5 different government agencies, Department of Health, Agriculture, Education, Community Development, and National Planning. And we just had established a coordinating unit within the National Planning Department. And we also just worked on our action plan, but really we have yet to start implementing the activity strategies that we had. And I just wondering from the Agriculture Department how I was going to look at, embracing nutrition and incorporating nutrition into agriculture interventions. And I just learned, and my takeaway was mainstreaming nutrition into the National Agriculture Development or Business Plan, and also mainstreaming nutrition into the education curriculum. And our entry point would be to start at the teachers' training colleges. And this is something currently for me as a policy officer within agriculture. I'm working on the medium-term development agriculture development plan. And this is something we have yet to finalize, and just included food security, but it seems that I will now add another part to nutrition. Thank you.
Thank you. That's good news and good luck. It makes agriculture even more fun, I guarantee that. Very, very rapid, and we'll have at least one man. So ladies, then there was Marty. And then
So very quickly, we know that what we choose to eat does not only
Moi,
come
je
from
vais parler en français.
what is on food level or what is on a dietary guideline. We talked about a missing actor, and those being the traditional tribal leaders and also faith leaders who are very influential in our food choices and can be very influential in terms of creating demand for nutritious foods, and also addressing some of those food taboos that we know prevent the consumption of nutritious foods even when they're affordable and available and accessible and all that. We also had a discussion, we have 2 private sector here, on the risks that are expected of the private sector, and sometimes those risks are underestimated and not valued by other players as we talk about the nutrition-sensitive value chains. Oh, my name is Miriam from World Vision.
thanks, Miriam. Marty.
Yes, in this group, we had a case study from urban food policy making. In Indonesia, there is, since 2012, I believe, a law that says that at every level, also municipalities, there's a need for a food and nutrition action plan, but it was not really put into practice. And now here's an example from Surabaya, one of the biggest municipalities in Indonesia. It's in East Java, where GAIN actually facilitated policy dialogue at the municipality level, bringing all the different players together. They didn't have a common vision on what is a nutritious food or what does hygiene have to do with it, etc. And through the facilitation and brokering they did, now is an action plan, and it's the first example of this in Indonesia. I think the takeaway is that at every level, wherever it's national level, and we saw ministries on the stage this morning, but also at the municipality level, you need this high-level political commitment from the mayor of Surabaya in this case, that then holds accountable people in the municipality, the different departments, on their contribution to that food and nutrition action plan. So that's one way. And the other point I would say is really that this wouldn't have happened without the brokering. And the brokering in multi-sectoral collaboration in nutrition, wherever we're doing it, is really key. And the last thing is, this is a policy dialogue, and it's a great case study of what project I'm currently working on is doing, national information platforms for nutrition. Thank you.
Moi, je m'adresse en français. Donc, effectivement, c'est notable concernant le volet alimentation scolaire. Ce qu'on a retenu, effectivement, c'est déjà la valorisation des produits locaux dans le cadre de ce programme-là. Et la seule préoccupation, c'est la partie qualité. Mais on est heureux de savoir qu'effectivement, tous les produits qui ont été retenus sont produits localement. Et pour le volet agriculture sensible à la nutrition, on a retenu pour certains la biofortification, qui est effectivement intéressante. Donc, après identification des différentes faiblesses de certaines plantes, on va effectivement naturellement apporter les nutriments qui manquaient. Donc c'est entre autres ce qu'on a retenu de ces ateliers.
Merci. So they learned about how to
Donc,
diversify school meals.
Pardon.
Je traduis juste parce que beaucoup de gens n'avaient pas de...
Merci. OK.
How to diversify
Donc,
school meals with local food. Attendez un instant, s'il vous plaît. Diversify school meals with local foods and various options for nutrition-sensitive agriculture, including biofortification.
D'accord. Donc, bonjour. Donc, je m'appelle Abdoulaye Sango, je viens du Mali, et précisément du secteur privé. Et ce que je retiens, c'est que le secteur privé, il faut dire, ce n'est pas simplement faire de l'argent, parce que l'alimentation doit être liée à la nutrition, l'agriculture à la nutrition. C'est très, très important. Il faudrait que le secteur privé soit très, très impliqué pour qu'il puisse lui aussi apporter, surtout au niveau des aliments de qualité. Ça, c'est très important et je pense que le secteur privé devrait être sensibilisé à ce niveau. C'est ce que je retiens de ça. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. This gentleman is from the private sector, reminding us that the private sector has an absolutely central role in providing the healthy diets that we need, and they need to be at the table. That's all we will gather orally, but we will gather everything in written form. So please make sure you give your cards to our lovely friend. And I will now hand over to Lawrence and our closing panel. Can I have the next slide, please, on the PowerPoint? And before I do that, Lawrence, I just would like us to give a round of applause to our interpreters who made this marketplace possible, a global multilingual marketplace. So thank you for their flexibility. And Lawrence, take us home.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlotte. She makes us work hard, doesn't she? Yeah, well, food systems are hard work, so we need to break them down and build them up again. Can I invite my panelists to come up? We're not going to sit and do the big formal thing. We're just going to stand because we want to make this snappy. We all want to get to lunch. So we're going to stand on the ceremony. Where's Ivan? There's Ivan as well. So we have a great panel. I'm going to ask them the same questions that we posed to you. What's your takeaway? And what does this mean for SUN Phase 3? And let me start out with Monica. She's right here. Monica is the CEO of Java Foods. She's also on the lead group of SUN. Monica, over to you.
Great. Thank you very much, actually. Really great discussions. I think people saw me hoovering. But some really interesting points. And one of the ones I picked up was food security does not equal nutrition. And I thought that was really interesting because in Africa we're having a big discussion about how much food we're growing. But then we're really, if you're looking at the stats are really quite painful. So now to answer your question about really key takeaways and what are we going forward, I represent private sector, more importantly I represent SMEs, and I think my key takeaway from this session is really that we really have to really work together. We have to engage, and I know we're coming from different points, different focuses, but the goal is the same, including private sector. So we see a lot of things. I sat in and then listened to conversations about food labeling, about the traffic light system, which sounds really great. but I heard less about engagement and consultation, about affordability, about how we're really going to make sure that the food, which is now labeled very nicely, is accessible to people. And I think that's what we really need more engagement on going forward. So I think that was one of my key takeaways, and something I'd like us to continue to focus on as we go forward. Also about data. I think this is the time when we really should be using much more really gathering information, all of us at every level, so we are making much more informed decision as we make policy changes, as we're doing legislation, as we're going forward on the planning. So really interesting. Some countries are already working on it, on surveys, etc. But what are we doing with this data? Are we analyzing it to create the right policies to really get to where we want to get? So those are my key points.
Thank you, Monica. Great. I'm not going to summarize. You did it brilliantly. Ivan Kent from the Global Panel of Agriculture and Food Systems.
Thank you, Lawrence. Okay, so we heard this morning from Anna right at the beginning in terms of how food systems are failing us, both for human health and for planetary health, with 800 million undernourished and then 2 billion adults overweight and obese, and those numbers rising most everywhere in the world. So what I was really glad to hear this morning is a really excellent session on clear, practical entry points to intervene, which is really what the community needs right now, because as I mentioned at the beginning, food systems can look really complex, and there are a lot of models around. I was glad to see that our model wasn't the most complex one up there from Global Panel. But clear, practical guidelines and entry points, and I've heard a lot of those this morning, and I'm really glad also to hear that those will be documented after this session. So something that struck me really was thinking about where do these different interventions fall, you know, in terms of how do we order them or think about them, and they really revolve around making healthy diets more available, making healthy diets more affordable, and making healthy diets also, or nutritious foods, more desirable for consumers. And these issues are all being investigated by Global Panel with our policy briefs, which are around today for you to pick up in the marketplace. And also we have a new foresight report on trends and challenges to intervene in food systems. And there'll be a consultation and a chance to input on that tomorrow at 6 o'clock in the Crystal Room, which Laurent is going to be facilitating for us. Okay, so just a couple of more things on some of these dimensions on availability, affordability, and desirability. Very quickly, so we heard about the importance of nutrition-sensitive agriculture, but I think we also heard that prices of nutritious foods are rising, relative prices are rising. So we need to think about why that is and the impact of subsidies, the subsidy regime we have at the moment in terms of staples, and how to reorientate that. In terms of affordability, a great case study on school feeding from Kyrgyzstan that I heard. But again, the stark reality is that 1.5 billion people can't afford a healthy, sustainable diet. So things like income generation and job creation, other social protection mechanisms, really important. Finally, on desirability of healthy foods, great case study here on the role of food-based dietary guidelines and labeling from Peru. I think it really shows how government needs to set the regulatory and the incentive framework for private sector who can do a lot, but that framework needs to be there to put those right incentives behind it. So availability, affordability, and desirability, if we can get behind those as all sectors within some movement, we'll be going in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivan. And Anna, you started us off. Bring us home.
Well, thank you very much. I really hope that you're leaving this room with a much better and clearer understanding of what we mean by food systems. If that has happened, I would have achieved my aim for coming here. That's number one. Number two, that SUN is taking on food systems. I think the lady here put it in a very clear term. You know, what is SUN should find its niche. Where in the food systems are we going to work? Keeping in mind the objective of what SUN wants to get out of everything it's doing. How do we use aspects of the food system to actually promote this? And I think this is something that SUNGG must really, I'm a part of the executive committee, so that's something we must address. I'd like to say a big thank you for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists. Don't clap yet. I'm going to, I was reflecting on these myself, and I just want to share briefly mine. My aha moments were, we're actually doing a lot already in SUNGG on food systems. I was surprised to see so many case studies that are highly relevant. So even though it may seem really complicated to many of us, we're already doing it. So take solace in that. The other, not really an aha moment, but a realization that to tackle this food system beast, we have to be working in multi-stakeholder ways. And SUNGG is already doing that. So we're already really well positioned to take this on. We're doing a lot of it already, and the ways of working the SUNGG members have is the way we need to tackle food systems. So listening to everybody and listening to the panelists, the four things that I think are important for us going forward in phase 3 is, first, food is kind of back. The food was off the table for a long time, and food is back. We're paying much more attention to what people eat, although we don't have great data. FAO and WHO are working on that with a gift database. Gallup Foundation is working on that with its Diet Quality Project. Not only do we not know enough about what people eat, we know very little about why they choose the foods they choose. That's why the labeling and the food environment stuff is so important. So food is back, I think, more than ever. I think we have to embrace the engagement of business, but we have to do it in a really smart way, because we know businesses are part of the problem and they must be part of the solution. So it's not a question of whether we engage, it's when and how and why and with whom, and how do we make sure that engagement minimizes any risk whatsoever of any harm happening. The third point is, we haven't talked much about it, so I want to interject it as my point. I don't know if you talked much in your groups about obesity and overweight and diabetes or non-communicable disease. But if we're worried about food systems and we're worried about the quality of food, we're really well positioned to address these issues. And in the SUNGG Focal Point meeting I attended yesterday, these issues came up a lot in the SUNGG Focal Points. And I know ministers of agriculture, ministers of health, they're worried about this stuff because they see it. And if we don't address the food system properly, we're going to wreck the health system, and we're going to wreck the environment. And those of you who are worried about food coming back onto the agenda, if I was a water and sanitation person or a healthcare person, would I be worried about that? No, because water and sanitation is absolutely vital for safe and good food. Health systems are absolutely vital for delivering some food to some groups. And let's not forget, breast milk is part of the food system. And my final point is the KISS principle. Who knows what that is? Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Food systems are really complex. Don't be intimidated by that. Break it down into its bits. And we've seen all those bits today. Break it down and then build it back up into the food system that you want it to be, that works for real people and delivers real, healthy, sustainable, safe, nutritious food. With that, Charlotte, I turn it back to you. Where are you, Charlotte? Do I need to turn it back to you? But please give yourselves a big round of applause.
Indeed.
And the panelists.
Well, thank you very much. A huge round of applause for our panelists. And what better transition to a lunch can we have? Bon appétit. Buon provecho. And good appetite. I don't know how you say that in English. Have a nice meal. Thank you.
Available, that is more sustainable, that is more aligned with that subnational area's priorities. So that's our exam task that's been set to us by the SMS, supported by ENN and MQ-SUN+. That's what we're here to do, ladies and gentlemen. Are you clear? Are you clear what we're trying to do? Yes, thank you. I won't test anybody. Subnational coordination, how can we make it more effective to deliver faster, better, more effective action? Now, we all, a lot of people like me, I look at a lot of national data. I used to be involved with the Global Nutrition Report, and we looked at lots of national level data. But people don't live at the national level. They live where they live, right? So we need to make SUN relevant for where people live. And this is the challenge that we're acting on today. We talk a lot in SUN about horizontal integration across sectors, but there is other types of integration. There's horizontal to vertical integration from the national to the subnational level, and there is integration at the subnational level. And we will touch mostly on the last one of those three, but no doubt we'll talk about the other two as well. So we have a great session lined up for you, a great workshop lined up for you. We have two fantastic speakers. If that's for me, can you tell them I'm busy right now? We've got two speakers who are going to kick us off, and then we're going to go into a small group working session. Oh no, we're going to have a panel, excuse me, with two speakers that will kick us off. Then we'll have a panel of three people who have lived experience of what subnational coordination looks like. They've lived it, they've done it, they've got the battle scars, they know what works and what doesn't work, and they know how to turn what doesn't work into what works. So we'll have that. And then we'll break into the small groups. I think there are about 20 tables around here. We're going to ask each of you in your tables to answer that one question. What, in your experience, makes for effective subnational coordination that leads to more effective subnational action? That's the only question we're going to ask you. You'll have 45 minutes to focus on that. If you need less, great. If you need more, tough. We'll then ask everybody, we'll give them each table 1 minute. One question, 1 minute, and will be timed. There'll be prizes for the shortest presentation. I can't promise that. There will be lots of kudos for the shortest presentation. And then we'll have a wrap-up session. So that's where we are. Ophelie, did I get that right? Yes? Am I about right on that? Okay, thank you. So without further ado, we're just really honored to have His Excellency, former President of Tanzania, President Kikwete, to come up and give us some opening remarks. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Haddad. Well, it's the first time I take the floor to speak. Let me first take this opportunity to thank Mrs. Rita for the Executive Director of UNICEF and Chair of the SUN Movement Lead Group for the invitation to participate in the 2019 SUN Movement Global Gathering. Well, I also thank our hosts, the government and the people of this great country of Nepal, for the warm reception and gracious hospitality we are enjoying every minute of our stay here. How I wish the SUN Movement could have organized a lighter program where we could find time and see about the history of this great country. But it's a good excuse for us to come back. Well, I've been asked to share Tanzania's experience of translating high-level political commitment and leadership to tangible results at local level. During my tenure as president of my dear country, the United Republic of Tanzania, from 2005 to 2015, it was 10 long years, I made nutrition a key political priority. I did that because I was convinced then, and still am convinced now, that improving nutrition is one of the best investments in the health and well-being of the population and development of our country. My vision was to ensure that Tanzanian children should be well nourished and given the opportunity to survive, thrive, and develop to their fullest physical and cognitive potentials. Under my leadership, Tanzania joined the SUNGG movement in 2011. And I was appointed by the then Secretary General Ban Ki-moon to be a member of the lead group. I'm glad that the new Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, has appointed me again to continue to be a member of the group, for which I sincerely thank you. To implement the commitment of our country joining the SUNGG movement, and my being a member of the lead group, I decided to undertake measures that will ensure robust action to advance the nutrition agenda in Tanzania. In this regard, I undertook first thing we did was to undertake a comprehensive review of the structures which were responsible for coordinating nutrition action in the country. As a result of that, we decided first to revitalize existing structures, because there are existing structures that we thought they were good enough. But what was needed was revitalize those structures. But also we created some new structures where we thought by doing that would be adding value to the work that we were doing. In my office, I appointed a special assistant for nutrition. To be my chief advisor on nutrition issues. And I selected a person who is a competent guy who had retired. He was the leader he worked with the National Nutrition Center for many years. He retired. I thought he had accumulated enough experience and wisdom to be my advisor. But I also set up a small committee of experts under the chairmanship of this advisor of mine to be the major advisory committee to advise me on nutrition issues. In the structure of our government at that time, and it is still now, the Prime Minister was in charge of the nutrition docket. There was a National Nutrition Steering Committee which was chaired by the Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister. And this committee had representation from all the ministries, all the sectors that were responsible for nutrition issues. Agriculture was there, livestock was there, fisheries was represented, water was represented, education was represented, local government was represented, finance was represented, the Planning Commission was represented, and the community development. These are the major sectors that were actually on the ground responsible for nutrition issues. But it also involved donors who were involved in nutrition issues in the country. We had, for example, Irish Aid, we had USAID, DFID, several of them. Not all donors were interested in nutrition issues, but those who were involved in nutrition issues, we made sure that they were part of the National Nutrition Steering Committee. But we also brought in the civil society organizations that were also interested or involved in nutrition issues. Because civil society is so many. Some of them are interested in constitutional issues, some of them are interested in this and that issues, but we only brought on board those that were specifically interested or involved in nutrition issues. So together they formed the National Nutrition Steering Committee. This was the leadership committee that was leading, discussing issues, agreeing on what needs to be done. They organize interventions because all those who are involved are present. But we also established, these are the new structures that we created. The National Nutrition Steering Committee was there. It was not my brainchild. But we created the regional, multi-sectoral Nutrition Steering Committee and the district multi-sectoral Nutrition Steering Committees. Because in our structure of government, we have national level, and then you have regional level, and then you have districts. And the districts are the ones that are actually where the people are. The regional steering committee was chaired by the regional administrative secretary, and the district was chaired by the district executive director. So these are the structures. But also, in every district council, we created an office of a nutrition officer. Expert nutrition officers were appointed to man these offices. These are the people now who are doing the actual work of making sure that make sure what is what and how it is to be done, and they use the district council for implementation. But this is also where the nutrition the nutrition focal points. We have 184 district councils, and each had a nutrition officer. But we also undertook major policy actions to advance the nutrition agenda. We launched the National Food Fortification Campaign. Before that, we did with fortification of salt. I was minister responsible for energy and minerals. One day an official from the ministry, from UNICEF came. He said, I want you and me, I want to come home with a video. I want us to watch it together. I was a bit reluctant, but I later accepted because he was insistent. So he came home. We sat there with the video, watching. The message, he was telling me a survey that had been done worldwide in Nepal, Bhutan, and all these countries, including Tanzania, on the effects of iodine deficiency. It was the first time I came to know about that. One of the problems was goiter. And my mother had goiter. So I came to learn, so my mother suffering from iodine deficiency. But this man was telling me that those who eat fish don't have this problem. We live along the coast, and the fish is one of our staple food. How come my mother suffered from goiter? The only problem is that she could not stand the smell of fish, so she was not eating fish. She would cook fish for us, but not for her. So I learned a lot from that. But then he said, you have the answer, Mr. Minister. I said, what is that? You are dealing with minerals, and salt is a mineral. If we fortify the salt, if we add iodine to the salt, this problem will not be there. I said, so be it. So we worked together with UNICEF, UNDP. We brought in machines for salt iodation to every salt works in the country. We left them to buy the ingredients. Later, of course, when I was president, we launched a major program of food fortification. We worked with maize and flour millers to fortify the maize and wheat millers, to fortify the flour that we are producing. We also worked with companies, factories that are producing edible oil, to fortify the edible oil. Other major policy interventions we made, we came up with the National Nutrition Strategy, 2011-2016, and an action plan. We organized a huge ceremony at a square to launch the program. And all the regional commissioners who were there, we called each one of them, this is the action plan, but with the assignment that make sure that this plan is implemented in your area of jurisdiction. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the 3 ones for nutrition were established. One plan, the National Nutrition Strategy, 2016. One coordination system as I have elaborated it. The National Steering Committee, the regional and district steering committees, the focal points. And one system of monitoring and evaluation, we have the Tanzania Food and Nutrition Center. Under it, there is a technical committee of experts who are doing the monitoring and following up of what is going on and reporting regularly through the Ministry of Health, that to the National Steering Committee, to the National Statistical Bureau, and this is included in the National Health Statistics. So we created a system whereby we were fully informed of what is going on, at least to the extent that we were able to capture the data. But however, as we all know, policies and plans are just pieces of paper. Unless plans are budgeted for, implemented and followed up, especially at the local level, that children and families and communities can access services and support they need. We made sure that there is a budget line for nutrition. It wasn't there before. We made sure that there is a budget line for nutrition. I left office 2015. I left my successor with the National Nutrition Strategy. Fortunately, he picked the baton from where I left. And the new president, President Magufuli, a national multi-sectoral national nutrition action plan 2016-2021 has been put in place. Nutrition was included as a standalone priority in the National 5-Year Development Plan 2016-2021. And a minimum budget for nutrition was guaranteed to work towards meeting the World Health Assembly target of reducing child stunting by 40% by 2025. The pre-planning and budgeting orientations are provided to all district councils. The proportion of councils disbursing the minimum nutrition budget has increased in the past 3 years. Under my leadership, Tanzania started producing public expenditure review on nutrition to track nutrition budget allocation and disbursement. This has been further strengthened today. There is now an automatic system in place to track expenditure against budget at every district council. Since 2017, a National Nutrition Compact signed by the Vice President and the regional district commissioners now holds them accountable. I only gave them the nutrition strategies, but the new administration now has signed a compact with these bosses. Says, hey guys, we have to sign a contract, a compact with you to deliver. And they signed this under the watchful eye of the Vice President. Being told exactly, you be held accountable on implementation of this plan. You have to deliver results. A scorecard tracking the indicators and budget of the National Nutrition Action Plan at regional and district levels is generated and reviewed every 6 months. They have developed a scorecard now. Because there are three. There is red, where things are bad. There is yellow, where things are in progress. There is green, where things are pretty fine. So if in your district or region everything is red, you lose your job. You're not performed. A few years down the line, we are now seeing concrete results. The coverage of the key nutrition interventions has continuously increased as vitamin A supplementation, deworming for children, iron and folic acid supplementation to pregnant women. Food fortification has been scaled up. There are now 42 large and medium-sized factories which fortify wheat, maize, and oil. 308 small industries which fortify maize flour. Because there are the large ones, there are the small ones. What we did, because for example, maize flour is being ground at the local level. Somebody has it as a business. People bring their maize for polishing and then grinding. What we did under the support of USAID, in all these small millers, at that point we were doing food fortification. We fortify the maize flour that people eat so that the necessary nutrients that people need are available. Between 2010 and 2018, exclusive breastfeeding rates have increased from 50% to 58%. This is something that we need to campaign a lot, because my mother used to breastfeed, but my sisters, my daughters these days say it is modernity. So it's something that is work in progress. But at least we are glad we have moved from 50% to 58%. The minimum acceptable diet increased from 21% to 30%. As a result, child stunting has been reduced from 42% to 32% today. Severe wasting has decreased from 2% to 0.4%, and anemia has been reduced from 40% to 29%. Of course, there is progress, but it's not good enough. We need to do more. The beauty of it all is that there is commitment. There was commitment during my time, but there is commitment now. So what I'm saying is high-level political leadership for nutrition is essential for nutrition results, but it must be echoed by the right mechanisms or anchored on the right mechanisms involving right stakeholders all the way to the community level. Today, I stand here proud to see the ambition and And the ensuing progress on nutrition continues even under the new political leadership of my successor. When the vision to end malnutrition and the political will to make it happen are owned by all stakeholders from national to community level, sustained results will definitely follow for the benefit of children, their families, and the entire nations. Thank you for your kind attention.
President Kikwete, that was amazing. Amazing because you did some very deliberate things to deliver impact at the district level. You set up multi-stakeholder platforms at the district level. You invested in capacity at the district level. You set up budgets at the district level. You monitored those budgets. There were consequences for not delivering on those budgets, sometimes being fired. So I think it's really inspirational. You made it sound very easy. I'm sure it's very hard to do in practice, very tough. And before I pass over to Chris, because I think many of the comments that you made, I think, Chris, will resonate with some of the case studies you're going to present to us. I just wanted to steal Chair's prerogative and just say, this president, there are quite a few presidents now who talk a lot about malnutrition and stunting reduction. But this gentleman, I think you were one of the first to do it. So I just want to acknowledge that. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you for your continued leadership. Now I'd like to pass over to Chris Coffey. And Chris is going to present to us a summary of 14 case studies that have been commissioned by various parts of the SUN Secretariat and the SUN infrastructure. And he's going to tease out some of the implications of how we do subnational coordination so that it does deliver what we want, impact at the ground level. Chris.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you, Lawrence, and thank you, Mr. Kikwete. So, as Lawrence said, I'm gonna look at a review of 14 different case studies that were commissioned. To go into all the findings, there's so many, and they're so complex and interesting, rich. Unfortunately, it's beyond what I can achieve today in the time that we have. So I'm just going to look at some of the characteristics of collaboration at the subnational level that we've seen, and then maybe just one takeaway point. And hopefully when the review comes out itself, you can follow up further, and also in today's discussions and the discussions here on stage, we can follow up further also and explore more. So, as Lawrence said, I'm here to set the scene a little for today's session by presenting some preliminary findings from a review of 14 case studies. Those case studies were carried out by the SUN Movement Secretariat with the support of MQ-SUN, Maximizing the Quality of Scaling Up Nutrition Plus. And 8 studies were conducted by Emergency Nutrition Network. The one commonality across studies is they all seek to understand the different ways that multiple stakeholders work together towards improving nutrition outcomes at the subnational level. And as you'll see, there's many different characteristics across the studies. So some of the key reasons for collaboration, ensuring that nutritionally vulnerable populations have access to services across sectors, reducing duplication among stakeholder efforts, making best use of available resources and building on synergies, and providing a cohesive understanding of stakeholder efforts and identifying where there may be gaps. And I'm just flying through those because I think the fact that we're all here, we probably have a good understanding of the need for collaboration at the stakeholder at the subnational level. Oh. So some of the ways that we found multi-stakeholder collaboration varies. The framework for action So the framework for action in some contexts was a multi-sector nutrition strategy at the national level or at the sub-national level. Sometimes that's a common results framework. Sometimes that's a more overall plan or strategy. In some cases, the framework for action was a multi-sector program, which may have funding from outside of regular budget, ministerial budgets. And in some cases, collaboration occurred more through individual sector policies and strategies, and stakeholders just coming together around the table and making sure that they implement those in a collaborative fashion. And then these last few points here, the number of stakeholders and type of stakeholders involved really varied across the 14 case studies and 14 countries. So in some contexts, collaboration occurred just between ministries. In some contexts, collaboration also involved a much wider group of stakeholders from civil society, INGOs, UN agencies, and others. And also the range of sectors involved varied greatly. So usually as a base, health and agriculture were involved, but in some cases the number of ministries and sectors ran into tens. The size of the population covered, these next 3 points are quite linked. So the size of the population covered, the administrative level at which collaboration occurs, and the level of autonomy for decision making are very tightly knit together. And as Mr. Kukwati mentioned, in the case of Tanzania, where there's provincial level multi-stakeholder collaboration, there's district level, and there's obviously national level. So it can be quite complex to pry those apart and see how vertical integration occurs or doesn't. And in the case studies we had, we were looking at provinces and districts. So we went from Sindh province in Pakistan of 48 million to districts of just 10,000 people. So the dynamics there are just completely different. Although there's still similarities and key learnings that can be pulled out from across all those different contexts. Absolutely. Well, in a moment I'll get onto the examples, and we'll start to mention some of the countries. I was going to put them up here today, but I thought, in the interest of time, just to pull out some examples, would be a better way to go about it. And another issue, just last issue here last issue on some of the different characteristics. Sorry, now this says. There we go. Is the level of autonomy for decision making. A big issue that came out was, so many countries have implemented some form of decentralization, and that has a big impact in terms of what stakeholders can actually do at a subnational level. So in some countries, there's a great degree of autonomy tied to decentralization, and in other more centralized governance systems, there's much less space for stakeholders at a subnational level to make decisions autonomously. So how has collaboration changed ways of working? And there's so many lessons that I could have pulled up here, but I just wanted to focus on one, and that's the difference in the shift in what sectors implement versus how they implement. And the central theme, I think, of this session is how coordination actually impacts implementation and improves service delivery for populations. And I think in some contexts, nutrition plans and strategies purely focus on the what of is implemented. And what that means is a set of activities is agreed across sectors, very often in line with what sectors already implement. And then stakeholders come together to discuss those activities that have been agreed upon and to follow them up over time. And a work plan is developed, and it's followed over time through regular meetings. That's hugely effective in and of itself to bring stakeholders together around the table. And if activities, programs are well designed across sectors to meet populations' needs, it can be an effective way to work. But I think the value addition that we saw across these case studies and the real value came in when you see how collaboration really shifts how programs are implemented and how activities are implemented. And some examples of those, let me just pull them up here, because there's numerous examples. So some examples of how collaboration has shifted how activities are implemented would be where stakeholders tailor a set of activities to the specific needs of vulnerable communities. And just in every one of these cases, I'm going to give an example, but there's so many more examples from the 14 case studies, but just in the interest of time, we can only focus on really one or two for each one of these examples here. So tailor a set of activities to the specific needs of vulnerable communities. An example of this would be in Zimbabwe, where community-level nutrition committees are given the power to decide what programs would suit their needs best and to identify vulnerable households and communities which most need programs. And that goes along with a whole host of advocacy and awareness raising. Converge on vulnerable populations and households. So this is a really key takeaway. And one of the central reasons, or one of the central the real value that comes from collaboration is where stakeholders can come together, different sectors can come together and make sure that they reach vulnerable communities with programs across sectors. And that's something that's very difficult to achieve because individual sectors and individual stakeholders have their own targeting criteria, have their own plans, have their own budgets to realize those plans. So some of the ways that we saw how convergence occurs, an example will be from Ethiopia, where a common list, stakeholders come together to collaborate at the district level, and a common list of vulnerable households is decided upon from education, agriculture, health and nutrition service providers, so that they can reach vulnerable households and communities and make sure that that full range of services are available to the most vulnerable populations. Another example of how it can occur is through cross-referral between programs and between sectors. So, for instance, in Benin, there's a social protection program that also includes nutrition screening of children and referral, or in El Salvador, conditional cash transfer programs which have conditions for sending enrollment of children in school and in healthcare screening also. And they're just two of so many examples that I could draw upon. The next point here, utilize or establish structures for community mobilization. This was really one of the most exciting and, for me, unexpected learnings from this review, is if we look at Guatemala or Zimbabwe or Benin, to name just a few countries where, multi-stakeholder collaboration and collaboration between partners goes right down to the village level. Having nutrition committees where, as I said in the case of Zimbabwe, communities can decide what programs are best suited to themselves, can monitor nutrition, and can work with district level collaborators, multi-stakeholder platforms, right to the provincial and the national level. Ensure understanding of a common set of messages by those delivering service and service users. This, again, was a really unexpected learning for me, is just the incredible importance of advocacy and the incredible importance of just a clear, simple set of messages for service providers and also for communities. And an example of this would be in Nepal, where the messaging around the 1,000 days and the golden 1,000 days is very well understood by service providers as a targeting criteria, and also understood by communities as a criteria for eligibility for programs, so they can hold people to account. They know that they're eligible for a program and for programs across sectors during that 1,000 days. Nextly, jointly engage in monitoring and evaluation. And this is an area which we found, and Mr. Kikwete really gave some good examples from Tanzania of how monitoring and evaluation, when it functions well, it's incredible for producing information, for course correction and programs, to make sure that, where things go wrong, we can fix them. Where people aren't performing, we can deal with it. And we found it quite variable across countries how M&E systems work. There's still a lot of work to be done in some cases, but just as a few examples of innovations in the area, in Pakistan, in provinces, sectors come together to collaborate to track nutrition budgets, and then that can be used to better target funding at populations and at programs where it should be going. And it's also available to civil society to hold governments to account. Another example would be in Ethiopia, where they're building an online platform for monitoring and evaluation, which is publicly available and available to sectors, so that they can hold government to account, hold stakeholders to account, and have a vision of where the country is and is going in relation to improving nutrition outcomes. So across all these sectors, there was a shift, or across all these examples, should I say, there was a shift not just in what stakeholders implement, but in how they implement and collaborate together. While in some cases the shifts which occurred were large, in many cases they're actually quite small, but nonetheless extremely challenging to achieve, because you have so many different sectors with their own plans, budgets, priorities, and you also have the subnational, be it the district to the province to the national level, and to really achieve change across all of those different levels, or to at least allow the space for subnational stakeholders to make those changes, is challenging. But nonetheless, it's not reinventing the wheel. It's just about understanding what collaboration means and how it can actually truly impact on vulnerable communities and increase access to services. So there's many, many more examples I could have drawn on here today that I unfortunately couldn't. And I'm hoping for the rest of today's session we'll be able to explore some of those. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. My presence closer to you didn't seem to make a difference. So I need to work on my threatening presence, I think. But that was fantastic, Chris. And I think it was good that you took the time that you needed, because this is real evidence and it's important stuff. I took away 3 points. One, there's a very diverse set of ways of collaborating. The payoff to collaboration seems to be on the what as well as on the how. And I think the what, for me, the what is equally important to the how. If you do the wrong thing, it doesn't really matter how well you implement it. So it's very important to make sure you implement the right thing. And then how important it is to document all of this stuff. And it's rare that we do, so I think it's fantastic to have your report. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to usher our speakers off the stage with a round of applause and usher the ones onto the stage. They don't want to be ushered off. You can stay there if you want. No, I think. I'd like to now welcome our other 3 panelists who are going to, in a way, give you more of a deep dive. They're only going to take 5 minutes each, but they're going to give you more of a deep dive on individual countries. And I'd like to welcome them to the stage. First of all, I have Dr. Azucena Dayangiran. She's the Executive Director of the National Nutrition Council of the Philippines. You heard her this morning. She was fantastic and fabulous. We have Sergio Perez Delegado from the Department of CESAN, and he's really been very kind to me because he's got 6 names listed on his title, but he said I can just use 3, so thank you very much. And he is from Guatemala, of course. And then we have Mr. Daniel Valer Setengubo from the Department of, the Regional Department of the Prefect Plateau, Benin. Welcome. And I think you're going to need your headphones. And I think I would like to ask, if you don't mind me calling you, Azucena, you go first. Thank you. Would you like to speak from here? Yes.
Sorry. Okay. Good afternoon to all of you. And I am pleased to be part of this workshop that will look into nutrition coordination in a devolved setup in all the local government units in the Philippines. What's happening? All right. Okay. So devolution in the Philippines took effect in 1991 with the passage of the local government code in the Philippines. Did we have a shift to a multi-sectoral platform or coordination? That's a question, so but not really. Because even in the centralized setup, okay, even in the centralized setup, we had given importance to local government units. Thus, we had institutionalized key processes as follows. Can I ask anybody to help me, please? Can you please? All right. Okay. So I'll just say next slide. Okay. Sorry for that. It's just a matter of technical. Okay. So anyway, let me first go to the Organization of Local Nutrition Committee slides. The next slide. Next slide. Okay. So we have institutionalized processes, and this is, number one, is the organization of the local nutrition committees that mirror the National Nutrition Council to the extent possible. So members of the local nutrition committees include heads of local offices as shown on the screen. So we have the committee, we have members from the Health Department, Agriculture, Social Welfare and Development, Local Development and Planning Office, and other government organizations present in the locality. So next slide. The local chief executive chairs the local nutrition committee and should provide the leadership in nutrition action in the locality. The point person for nutrition is the Nutrition Action Officer, and I was very fortunate that once being a Nutrition Action Officer myself, after graduating from medical school and being granted a physician's license, I was luckily appointed by no less than the President of the Philippines right now, because I'm from Davao City, the hometown of our incumbent president. The Nutrition Action Officer actually takes various forms. He or she can be designated by the local chief executive from among the heads of the local offices or any one of the staff of the local government. So in many cases, the local health officer is also designated as Nutrition Action Officer. In some instances, a person is hired and appointed as Nutrition Action Officer. Sometimes, a local government has a nutrition office. Devolution has made this arrangement better or advantageous as local governments evolve their respective structures and mechanisms for nutrition coordination based on their capacity and appreciation of the importance of nutrition. But since the Nutrition Action Officer is not a mandated position, nor the Nutrition Action nor the Nutrition Office, a mandated office by the local government code, there is no common look across the country. Next. We have also institutionalized local nutrition planning that began in 1977. And the local nutrition committee have been formulating the respective local nutrition plans since then. With the local government code, an important endeavor was in ensuring that local nutrition action plan does not remain as a standalone plan, but is integrated in the local development and investment plan. Thus, we pursued efforts to build local capacities for not just planning, but overall program management of program, particularly the nutrition management program training, which involves the conduct of orientation trainings and of planning workshops during which local government functionaries themselves go through steps in planning to evolve their nutrition action plan. So this by itself is an important approach to ensure ownership of the nutrition action. Next. So we also develop manuals. So this is it. We also develop manuals as reference even after the training workshops. So, next slide. The third process is institutionalized on monitoring and evaluation of local level plan implementation, which is done by interagency nutrition evaluation teams at the provincial, regional, and national levels. The scheme really looks into efficiency or the extent to which physical and financial targets were met, and effectiveness on the extent to which the nutrition situation has improved. Evaluation is done through document review, key informant interviews, and validation of weighing and an oral and written feedback on the findings that makes this MLP also a capacity building strategy. We have also seen governments adjust their processes to be consistent with what the evaluators look for. Next. The monitoring evaluation system actually is linked with an award mechanism that recognizes outstanding performers initially at the regional level and eventually at the national level. So the awardee local governments who qualify for the national awards are actually monitored for consecutive 6 years. So local chief executives performing local government become advocates of nutrition among their peer local chief executives. But we are now shifting this award system from one of competition among local government units to one through which local government units aspire to achieve set standards. Next. So other strategies that we have pursued are along generating policy issuances. These are from the Department of Interior and Local Government that, among others, calls on all local chief executives to include the programs inscribed in the Philippine Plan of Action for Nutrition 2017 to 2022 in their development and investment plans, and from the Department of Budget Management that includes nutrition programs among priorities for inclusion in the local government local budget. Next. So we continuously interface with local chief executives through various fora and the provision of information tools. For example, we prepared this flyer for local chief executives attending an orientation on local governance organized by the Local Government Academy, especially when they are duly elected. With assistance of a consultant engaged through the assistance of Nutrition International, we developed the first compendium of actions for nutrition that featured the stories of 11 local government units. And as we distributed this manual, some local executives have commented that they themselves would like to be featured in the next edition as nutrition champions. And so with a 5 minutes requirement for presentation, I still have more stories to tell, but I will be sharing these in Tokyo 2020. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Dhanyabad.
That was fabulous. You added in things that we haven't talked much about yet, that haven't come up yet. You added in a lot of things that we haven't talked about yet, namely incentives. We can set up the best infrastructure, we can set up the best budgets. How do we incentivize? How do we incentivize through sticks as well as carrots? And we heard about the awards and the champion awards, and these are very important because they humanize the systems. So thank you very much for that. Our next presentation is by Daniel, by Sergio, and he's going to talk about building and sustaining a common understanding of political will in Guatemala. Sergio, over to you.
Buenas tardes a todos, muchas gracias por la invitación, gracias a todos. 5 minutos. La experiencia en Guatemala es enriquecedora. Podemos empezar hablando, por favor, la anterior. Si en Guatemala se ha logrado institucionalizar la política de seguridad alimentaria nutricional a nivel de codesanes y comusanes en el país completo. ¿Podríamos decir esto? Simplemente sí, sí se ha logrado. ¿Cómo lo hemos logrado? Pues por un proceso en el cual ha sido largo, pero con las directrices claras que vienen de un sistema de seguridad alimentaria nutricional que está conformado por 3 niveles. Como pueden ver, está el Consejo Nacional de Seguridad Alimentaria Nutricional, que es en el cual participa el vicepresidente y todo su gabinete. Luego, a nivel departamental, están las comisiones departamentales de seguridad alimentaria nutricional, las cuales están dirigidas y presididas por el gobernador, con los integrantes de cada una de las instituciones de gobierno presentes a nivel local, pero también con la sociedad civil, con los representantes de ONGs, y todos los actores que están trabajando en seguridad alimentaria nutricional a nivel departamental. Luego sigue el tercer nivel, que es el municipal, que es la Comusan. En esta participa el gobierno municipal, el alcalde es el que preside la comisión, y todos los extensionistas, todas las personas que trabajan de cada uno de las instituciones de gobierno presentes a nivel departamental y que tienen acciones directas en el municipio. Pero también la presencia importante del sector civil, representados por los OCODES, iglesias y principalmente el sector educativo, representados por los maestros o los CTAs. A nivel departamental, la siguiente, podríamos ver, Guatemala está conformada por 22 departamentos, 340 municipios. Tenemos a nivel nacional la CONASAN, como había dicho, tenemos conformadas 22 comisiones departamentales de seguridad alimentaria y nutricional y hay conformadas 325 comisiones municipales de seguridad alimentaria y nutricional. O sea, solamente hacen falta 15 municipios en los cuales no se ha logrado conformar esas comisiones debido a otras instancias, posiblemente porque no se han empoderado bien las corporaciones. Pero se tienen las mesas de trabajo técnicas de seguridad alimentaria y nutricional en las cuales participan todas las instituciones de gobierno, participan COCODES, participan maestros. Es en sí una comisión de seguridad alimentaria y nutricional, pero no tiene la presidencia del gobierno municipal. Pero eso no quiere decir que las direcciones o las oficinas municipales que están encargadas de los temas de seguridad alimentaria y nutricional no participen en esas mesas técnicas. ¿Cómo se puede considerar el fortalecimiento de la política de seguridad alimentaria y nutricional? Pues porque tenemos un marco legal que nos dice qué hacer. Está la política de seguridad alimentaria y nutricional, la Ley de Seguridad Alimentaria Nutricional y está el reglamento de la Ley de Seguridad Alimentaria Nutricional. Estos son los que nos están dando el camino a seguir para que esta seguridad que nosotros hemos estado trabajando se implemente y continúe. Esto ha pasado por los gobiernos, ha llevado un camino largo, más o menos llevamos un poco más de 10 años de estar trabajando eso. Se ha estado concientizando y empoderando a los gobiernos locales para que manejen el tema de seguridad alimentaria nutricional y logren con ello hacer acciones directas para que den respuesta a los problemas de seguridad alimentaria nutricional que tienen a nivel local. La siguiente. El sistema, como había dicho, es un engranaje en el cual cada una de los engranajes que están ahí tienen que trabajar coordinadamente para que esa gran maquinaria que se llama Sistema Nacional de Seguridad Alimentaria Nutricional funcione adecuadamente. Va a funcionar única y exclusivamente en el momento que cada uno de los actores que conforman estos engranajes tomen el papel que le corresponde y hagan el trabajo que tienen que hacer, desde el nivel nacional, empoderándolos a nivel departamental y a nivel local. La siguiente. Estas son las instituciones que apoyan el Sistema Nacional de Seguridad Alimentaria Nutricional. Como podemos ver, hay mucha de la sociedad civil que está apoyando el sistema en Guatemala. La siguiente. ¿Cómo vamos a ver eso? Hay un presupuesto. Ustedes pueden ver ahí, no es mi expertise el presupuesto, pero podemos ver que se ha logrado tener un 74.67% de la ejecución presupuestaria. ¿Dónde se ha ido más que toda esa ejecución presupuestaria? Pues en la alimentación escolar, en monitoreo de todas las acciones que tienen las instituciones de gobierno a nivel local en los temas de seguridad alimentaria nutricional. Toda esta información está puesta en una plataforma. Abajo pueden ustedes ver la dirección www.sinsang.gov.gt y ejecución presupuestaria. Esta información está pública, cualquier persona puede hacer la auditoría de venir, ver la ejecución que tiene cada una de las instituciones en los temas específicos que ellos quieren ver. La siguiente. ¿Cuál es el éxito que ha tenido Guatemala? Primero, hay un grupo de personas que tienen acciones muy específicas en el trabajo de seguridad alimentaria nutricional, pero estas personas trabajan de manera coordinada para poder echar a andar esa maquinaria. La siguiente. Tenemos un manual de gobernanza local y una estrategia de gobernanza local. Este es la guía que nosotros como nivel departamental utilizamos para empoderar a los diferentes gobiernos municipales, a los COCODES, que son los representantes de la sociedad civil a nivel más bajo en el local, para que ellos conozcan del tema de seguridad alimentaria nutricional, puedan gestionar acciones o puedan ellos venir y fiscalizar el trabajo que están haciendo las instituciones en el tema de seguridad alimentaria nutricional. ¿Cómo lo vamos a hacer? Pues a nivel municipal se realiza, la siguiente por favor, se realiza un diagnóstico de cómo está la situación municipal, se genera un plan de acción para que ese plan de acción represente realmente las necesidades de la población y las acciones que tiene cada una de las instituciones de gobierno apunten a darle respuesta a esas necesidades de la población, porque es a la población a la que nosotros como instituciones tenemos que apuntarle, trabajar para ellos y por ellos. La siguiente. Entonces, juntos vamos a avanzar para lograr alcanzar la meta que es la seguridad alimentaria nutricional que queremos en el país y en el mundo entero. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, Sergio. And I took away a couple of things, many things, but the two things I want to highlight. I really like the cog diagram, showing how everything is connected to everything else. And if one part isn't working, it can jam up the gears. And the other thing I really liked was your focus on transparency. And transparency in this kind of devolved, delegated system has to be very high, because that generates trust, and these kind of systems just run on trust as well as on incentives. So thank you very much for that. Daniel, you're up next, Daniel, and Daniel's title is From Coordination to Better Implementation and Accountability in Benin.
Merci. Je remercie très sincèrement les autorités de SUNGG Movement pour nous avoir permis d'être ici ce soir pour présenter l'expérience du Bénin de façon générale et précisément du département que je dirige. Et je crois que le Bénin, comme les expériences qui nous ont précédées, je pense par rapport à la Philippine, nous avons une certaine ressemblance dans l'organisation avec quelques nuances près. Et je dirais que c'est depuis 2006 que le gouvernement du Bénin a pris la mesure du mal que constitue la malnutrition, qui était à 43%, et a alors décidé de prendre les taureaux par les cornes et a défini une vision qui est celle de faire de la nutrition à l'horizon 2030, et de faire du Bénin à l'horizon 2030 un pays où chaque personne jouit d'un état nutritionnel optimal pour son bien-être, lui permettant de participer activement à la création de richesses nationales et au développement durable. Et pour ce faire, un dispositif a été mis en place au plan national, et comme vous le voyez, composé au plan national du Conseil de l'alimentation et de la nutrition, qui est présidé par le chef de l'État, le président de la République lui-même, et il a le secrétariat permanent de cette structure. Ensuite, quand nous descendons du niveau national, nous arrivons au niveau départemental, et nous avons alors à ce niveau un cadre départemental de nutrition présidé par le préfet de département, et nous descendons au niveau communal. Nous avons le cadre de concertation communale de nutrition qui est présidé par le maire, et quand nous quittons le niveau communal, nous allons au niveau infracommunal, c'est-à-dire au niveau des villages. Nous avons ce que nous appelons le Conseil de sécurité alimentaire et de nutrition, qui est présidé par le chef de village. Ce qui nous intéresse ici, c'est notre expérience au niveau communal, au niveau du CCC Nutrition. Je crois que, comme vous le voyez, le gouvernement a compris que la question de nutrition ne saurait être monopolisée au niveau central et a essayé de décentraliser. Et au niveau communal, nous avons le département qui est le mien. J'ai 5 communes, et toutes les 5 communes ont ce cadre de concertation à l'image des autres départements. Le Bénin en compte 12. Tous les départements ont le cadre départemental, et toutes les 77 communes ont aussi le cadre de concertation communale en matière de nutrition. Et au niveau de chaque cadre de concertation, le maire, qui est le président et de cette structure, vous allez voir tout à l'heure le dispositif qui est mis en place, le maire, qui est le président de cet organe, et voilà, et est entouré de tous les acteurs clés qui interviennent dans le domaine de la nutrition. Quand vous regardez très bien, vous avez vu au milieu, nous avons le maire. Ensuite, nous avons le ministère de la Santé, qui est représenté au niveau communal. Nous avons ensuite le ministère de l'Agriculture. Nous avons ensuite le ministère des Affaires sociales. Nous avons le ministère de l'Enseignement, qui est en haut de l'Éducation nationale. Ensuite, nous avons la société civile composée des ONG et surtout des leaders religieux. Et nous avons enfin le secteur privé. Donc voilà tout cet ensemble-là, mis ensemble au niveau décentralisé, et essaie de coordonner les actions gouvernementales au niveau local en vue de régler un tant soit peu la question de nutrition au niveau de notre pays. Et comme je l'ai dit, au niveau du bureau, nous avons le maire qui est le président, nous avons un rapporteur qui est le point focal. Et c'est ce point focal véritablement qui est l'acteur opérationnel au niveau local, au niveau communal, dans cette structure de lutte contre la malnutrition dans nos communes. Au niveau départemental, vous voyez également, nous avons aussi, au niveau du cadre départemental, un point focal qui est chargé de coordonner tout ce qui se passe au niveau des 5 communes. Il descend périodiquement dans les 5 communes pour essayer d'évaluer ce qui se fait au niveau des CCC, essayer de prodiguer des conseils et parfois descendre même avec les points focaux au niveau communal, au niveau des communautés, dans les villages, pour voir comment ça se passe au niveau infracommunal. Donc, de façon globale, nous constatons que au niveau des 77 communes de notre département, comme nous le disons, nous avons l'intégration de la nutrition dans les plans de développement communaux. Nous avons l'élaboration des cadres communaux de résultats dans les 77 communes, ce qui a permis de faire le diagnostic des interventions, de voir le développement des cadres communaux de résultats et de voir d'élaborer des tableaux de bord communal de nutrition et de les intégrer dans le plan de travail annuel et d'allouer chaque année des ressources propres aux interventions nutritionnelles. Il faut dire qu'au Bénin, dans toutes les communes, nous avons obligé les maires à créer des lignes budgétaires chaque année dans leur budget pour pouvoir intervenir au niveau local, au niveau de la nutrition, en plus des efforts que fait l'État. Voilà l'apport qu'apportent les communes. Et une fois, en tant que tutelle, chargée d'approuver les budgets des communes, lorsque nous prenons chaque budget de chacune des communes, nous voyons si cette ligne est pourvue dans le budget communal. Et je peux vous rassurer que depuis 2 ans, au niveau du département du Plateau que je préside, le budget a pratiquement doublé en 2019 de chacune des communes. Nous avons ensuite la mise en place d'un dispositif de veille au niveau local, la consommation des ressources. Et là, nous avons vu la consommation des ressources allouées à la nutrition. Nous veillons strictement à ça. Il ne suffit pas de créer des lignes. Pour créer, il faut véritablement débloquer les fonds pour que ces fonds puissent servir. Et tout à l'heure, comme l'a dit, j'ai suivi tout à l'heure celui qui a fait le compte rendu de l'étude qui a lieu dans certains pays. Effectivement, au niveau local, le secteur social joue un rôle très important dans la prise en charge, et non seulement des enfants malnutris, et on fait tout pour qu'on n'en détecte pas, mais lorsqu'on en détecte, c'est les affaires sociales qui prennent en charge ces enfants et qui sont orientés vers les centres. Ensuite, nous avons le suivi des activités par les cadres communaux, par le cadre communal de concertation et la mise en place de l'initiative à résultat rapide. Nous avons le suivi des activités par le cadre départemental de nutrition et les maires ont l'obligation, au moins 2 fois l'année, de rendre compte aux populations des actions menées au niveau de la nutrition. Parce que lorsqu'ils débouchent les sous pour ce secteur, il faut qu'ils rendent compte régulièrement à leurs mandants, à leur population, pour que des actions qui sont menées dans le secteur pour pouvoir véritablement booster la nutrition au niveau communal. Bon, tout ce que nous venons de dire n'est pas sans difficulté. Nous avons des défis à relever et au nombre de ces perspectives, nous proposons peut-être au gouvernement la création d'un guichet au niveau du Fonds d'appui du développement des communes pour les interventions au niveau de la nutrition. Il faut dire que ce fonds est créé par l'État pour apporter une aide au niveau des subventions dans tous les secteurs et aux communes du Bénin. Et au niveau de ce fonds, nous souhaiterons la création de ce guichet nutrition. Le recrutement de spécialistes en nutrition dans les 77 communes, la mise à l'échelle des interventions nutritionnelles dans toutes les localités et enfin la revue communale trimestrielle en matière de nutrition et au niveau départemental, cette revue sera semestrielle dans le secteur. Donc voilà brièvement, en 5 minutes, présenter l'expérience du Bénin. Je vous remercie.
Daniel, thank you. That was great. I especially enjoyed your emphasis on accountability and community. I thought the community, the mobilization of the community and the community's sort of documenting the quality of implementation was very interesting and very important. So I feel kind of sorry for these presenters because we've given them a very short period of time to present in. They've all kind of gone over time, but I'm feeling very sympathetic about that because this is really difficult stuff. It's intricate stuff and it defies sound bites. So I would like you to give all 3 of them a fantastic round of applause. So now we move into the small group work. You have about 15 minutes, 15 minutes for each of you, each group. You have 1 question to answer. Based on what you've heard from these 5 presentations, based on your own experiences that you will share at the table, what is it about, what's the key to unlocking effective coordination, either across sectors or across stakeholders at the subnational level that really spurs effective action on nutrition? What is it? Now, I want each of you to just give me 1 thing. You can talk about as many things as you want on the table, obviously, but I want you to report back 1 thing, okay? The key thing that you think at your table is hindering effective coordination. Or you can put it more positive, that's the 1 thing that's unlocking. Either way, whichever way you want to do it. You've got a group of facilitators that are roaming around, and we want each of you to appoint a rapporteur for your table. That rapporteur may or may not be able to speak, but we'll try and get as many of you in as possible. So I think now is the time we go into small groups. 15 minutes, focus on that 1 question. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I have a timer. You will hear a noise when the minute is up. You will then stop. Folks, can you stop talking? Wrap up. Thank you. Yes, sir. Over to you.
Thank you. I will be brief, less than 30 seconds. We have agreed that...
Please be quiet, everybody.
In this table, we have agreed, assuming that there are these local structures, coordination structures existent, for effectiveness, there is a strongly need for awareness and advocacy. That's what we concluded. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Awareness and advocacy to make things happen at the subnational level. Who's next? Who would like to go next? Who'd like to go next? Yeah, this table? That table, way at the back. Go ahead. Your time is beginning now.
Thank you for allowing me to share our experiences. We have so many, points, though you asked us.
You've already used 10 seconds.
Okay, so let me finish. What we found that accountability, if you come up with a good monitoring system, it will make all accountable and make the system functional. Okay.
Brilliant, thank you. Thank you. So we've got advocacy, accountability. What's next? Yes, please go ahead. Wait, I need to time it.
La table francophone.
Yes, go ahead.
Nous avons retenu deux grandes idées. Donc pour la clé de succès, nous proposons qu'il faut établir une charte de responsabilité bien claire avec la transparence, décrivant les rôles de chacun, appuyé par des mesures légales pour accompagner le mécanisme de coordination. En termes de blocage, nous avons identifié que le montage institutionnel ne permet pas de respecter cette charte de responsabilité. Il y a aussi la différence de niveau d'engagement de chaque acteur œuvrant pour la nutrition. Merci.
Done? Can someone just summarize that for me in 2 or 3 words? Because I couldn't get that on the translation. Just in English, 2 or 3 words? Accountability, okay.
Accountability framework.
Okay, great. Thank you. Who's next? Yes, go ahead. Over here.
Yeah. As per the discussion in this table, that one very important thing which is lacking now is political will and political interest at the subnational or the local level. So we do have coordination structures and we do have processes, but it's the will and the interest at the local level which is lacking currently.
Okay, you're all being amazingly quick. Now the challenge is to figure out how do we incentivize that political will? How do we put pressure on politicians to act? And of course you can marry the accountability with the pressure by developing these maps, these scorecards, all that sort of stuff. Who'd like to go next? There's 3 over there, 3 tables right there. They're waving things at me. You think that's going to make me pay attention? Yeah.
Thank you so much. The first thing is use of local champions can also help to strengthen the local level coordination. Another thing is also allowing decision making and prioritization at local level, considering the various contextual variation within the subnational level, and also cooperation among the various stakeholders for better utilization of the resources. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. Local champions, decision making at the local level. Who's next? Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
Здравствуйте, меня зовут Жаркын Ибраева, из Кыргызской республики, являюсь заместителем губернатором в Нарынской области, которая граничит с Китаем, горную, как Непал. Наша группа считает, что нужен лидер, ключевое слово человек-лидер, как президент Танзании. Спасибо.
Sorry, I'm having technical difficulties. Can somebody summarize that for me again?
Должен быть чемпион.
Sorry, say it again. Champions. At what level?
Champions like President of Tanzania.
All right. We can't. Are we going to try and clone him? Is that what you're saying? All right. Good. Thank you. Champions. Who's next? This table right here. You're doing amazingly well, guys.
I am Moses Kawan from Sierra Leone, and with this group, for us, we said we use best practices from nutrition champions and look at their context and experience, develop it and adopt at country level. However, we also said to establish an independent nutrition action body, such as nutrition authority councils, local councils, and also nutrition budget code to track progress.
Thank you. So tracking progress, establish those bodies, build capacity. I don't know who's next. Who's feeling very unfairly treated? Okay. Yes.
Merci. C'est le groupe francophone.
All right, give me time.
L'un des groupes francophones, c'est Gilbertine du Tchad. C'est les défis rencontrés pour accroître l'impact de ces efforts. Le premier défi, c'était l'insuffisance de l'implication des autorités administratives. Le second, c'est la méconnaissance de la nutrition qui est noyée dans la sécurité alimentaire ou encore la santé. Le troisième et dernier, c'est l'insuffisance du personnel qualifié en matière de nutrition à tous les niveaux. Voilà, c'est l'expérience du Cameroun. Merci.
Thank you. Avili, can you just quickly summarize? My machines are not working. I don't know why. Just 2 or 3 words.
D'accord. On reprend, comme il y a un problème. 3 mots-clés, c'est l'insuffisance de l'implication des autorités administratives.
Buy-in by local administrative authorities.
Okay.
Le second, c'est la méconnaissance de la nutrition qui est noyée dans la sécurité alimentaire ou encore la santé.
An insufficient understanding of nutrition, which is often drowned in food security or health.
Le dernier, c'est l'insuffisance du personnel qualifié en matière de nutrition à tous les niveaux.
Okay.
And last challenge, insufficient qualified personnel at all levels.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. It's great to hear the personnel issue come through, so thank you. Who's next? I think we've got time for 3 more. Huh? 3 more. This group here, and this group here down here is being overlooked. 1, 2, who's the third group? This group right in the middle. Yes. So 1, 2, 3. Sorry, guys. I know you want to stay here the whole time. Yeah, are you threatening me if I don't call on you? Okay, you go to number 4.
Okay, in our group, there are different countries with different setups for coordination, but one of the challenges is that coordination for nutrition and food security involves many different sectors, and oftentimes they're all the same as the regular overall development coordination, and they might be overlooked because the same actors are in both, and then they don't give enough attention to having those nutrition coordination groups.
So how do we fix that?
Yeah, so if we include it in the other bigger one, then they may not get the level of attention needed by nutrition. So it's a challenge to see how countries have addressed that.
So how to make the more evolved levels more visible without drowning them in process? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
You need to be... Yes, thank you.
In our group, we decided that for effective coordination, there should be resources availed to support implementation. So resource availability we thought was very important. Thank you.
resource allocation. It's so important. Often the responsibilities and burdens will be pushed down, but not the authority or the resources or the capacity. So thank you very much for that. Who's next?
Here, over there.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay,
for our team.
I go
Are you
then.
sure there are only
It's my
20
turn.
groups in here? Who's
For
next?
our team, we said that
are we?
demonstration of value of combined effort at all levels is going to lead to improved implementation.
Sorry, say it again. Sorry, I missed it.
Okay, for our group, we said that demonstration of value of combined effort at all levels will lead to improved implementation. Thank you.
Thank you. All levels, demonstration of value. Yes, thank you. Give me advice. SMS. This group, yes.
Thank you. In Spanish.
Okay.
Concluimos que el éxito para poder desbloquear la intervención de las acciones a nivel subnacional son las siguientes. Primero, necesitamos que haya un liderazgo y compromiso de las autoridades subnacionales para que asignen los presupuestos y se definan las prioridades. Segundo, tiene que haber sensibilización, capacitación de todos los involucrados. Tercero, debemos de tener información de manera oportuna para la toma de decisiones. Y cuarto, necesitamos fortalecer las capacidades de los gobiernos subnacionales en función de su capacidad de análisis para la planificación y la ejecución de las acciones. Gracias.
Thank you. Strengthen capacity, timely information, resources. One more. Now no one wants to do it. Okay, last group. Yeah.
Okay, we think the funding issue is very important, and in our group, we thought a decentralized process, budgeting process, combined with a government commitment is a key to success, because it allows allocation of additional resources at local level to support actually all those coordination bodies that are set at central, mid-level, and at local level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Allocation of resources in a deliberate way, sustained way. I think we're going to... Two more? I'm in your hands. Go ahead. Oh, and this table. Don't forget this table. They're troublemakers over here.
Okay, so I'm going to present a solution from Agatha, our dear mom here. She's insisted that we have to say this for everybody to learn. She's given us background from how they used to do things in the days. So she says the problem we have at all levels is that we are not learning from our past mistakes.
It's not a mistake, it is our strength. Because we have gone through this problem of malnutrition for a very long time. And now we have democracy and we have better days in front of us. Long time ago, when the Small Farmers Development Program was existing in Nepal and Women Development Program was there, we had very small program of early childhood development. Even during those days, we had motivated the community how to contribute grains. 3 types of grains: wheat, maize, corns, and chamal, rice. And the families, by rotation, they used to grind it and make sarbatam pitho, nutritious flour, and then that was contributed to the community ECD centers. I'm talking about 5 years old below children. And this was fried and ground and and used for sarbatam pitho at the child development centers. This is how we managed. Now we have better government, we have democracy. Why not possible? That time the parents did it. Small Farmers Development Program and Women Development Program made it possible for Nepalese children. Why can't we do it now? When the government is involved, democracy is in our hand. Why can't we do it? We have better future now for a better world, a better Nepal.
Thank you. That's great. And your comment highlights the point that governance is really important. All sorts of things can become possible with better governance. And you also said it's okay to make mistakes as long as you don't keep making the same mistakes over and over again. Last table.
Merci. Je crois au niveau de cette table aussi francophone, et nous avons noté une faible appropriation au niveau local, parce que dans nos localités, nous avons plusieurs langues et la notion de malnutrition pose problème. La terminologie pour traduire la malnutrition pose problème. Nous avons ensuite le problème de leadership. Au niveau national, nous voyons qu'il y a leadership, mais au niveau local, la question de leadership se pose avec beaucoup de problèmes. Nous avons enfin la question de la faiblesse des allocations budgétaires et leur décaissement qui se pose au niveau local. Merci.
Thank you. The struggling of allocation of resources, what's driving that? What's difficult about that?
Non, au niveau local, vous savez, nos collectivités, tout à l'heure nous avons parlé de la question d'appropriation de la notion de malnutrition. Ça fait que nos élus, la plupart des élus locaux ont des problèmes pour véritablement prendre au sérieux la question de la malnutrition. Ça fait qu'ils donnent priorité à autre chose plutôt que de prioriser le financement de ce secteur.
Thank you. Thank you.
Même si l'argent hier, le décaissement pose toujours problème. C'est réorienté ailleurs. Merci.
Yeah. Thank you. I think we're going to call this to an end. I'm very sorry for anyone who was desperate to speak but couldn't. I'm going to try, and I'm not going to try. I'm going to highlight a few things that came out to me. First of all, to make this work properly, it requires leadership. From the highest office in the land, the presidency, President Kikwete, all the way through to leaders at the community level, the family level. It's going to take leadership at all levels, wherever you are. It's going to take, number two, a deliberate effort to build this infrastructure. Yesterday at the focal point meeting with the executive committee, there was a lot of talk about how we need to build infrastructure. We don't, as focal points, we don't feel we've got the support we need to deliver at the level we need. How do we build that deliberate infrastructure that has to be part of SUNGG 3.0? How do we do that? It's about institutions, it's about capacity, it's about budgets, it's about advocacy, it's about resources. So we have to do that. We have to do it in a way that it's not crazily expensive, but it is effective. And I think the final thing I'd like to say is that it takes a long time. One of our panelists said this, said it takes a long time, and you have to stick with it, and you have to do the really boring, dull stuff of hiring the right people, making sure they're in post, making sure they're incentivized properly, both in a positive sense, but also that there are consequences for poor performance, because poor performance hurts who? It hurts the kids and the women and the adolescents that are malnourished. So I think this conversation will continue, and it must continue, and you must be at the forefront of driving it. So I'd like you to join me in thanking all of our panelists and all of our participants for a fantastic session. And there are some logistic announcements, I believe. Oh, and I just wanted to thank I wanted to give the interpreters a big round of applause.
Donc voilà un petit annoncement en français qui pourrait être interprété, sinon je répéterai en anglais et ma collègue Francisca en espagnol. Vous descendrez la distribution de bracelets pour le poignet à commencer pour le dîner de ce soir. Donc n'hésitez pas à récupérer votre bracelet. Le cocktail commence à 6 heures. Et ensuite, pour le retour à vos hôtels, il y aura 6 différents itinéraires pour prendre votre bus jusqu'à l'hôtel. Donc les bus partent à partir de 9h15 à l'extérieur de l'hôtel. Donc les informations sont également dans l'atrium. Do I need to repeat in English? Okay. So we've started distributing handrests for the cocktail tonight. Please come and pick yours up at the atrium. The distribution has started. There will be buses taking you back after the cocktail dinner to your hotels, 6 different routes. And those buses will be leaving from 9:15 p.m. outside of the exit of the hotel lobby. So again, check the maps to select the best route for your situation.